What's going on, guys? It's Greg Dies, and welcome to another episode of the Basement Tutorials. This is episode 3, and today we have Mac O'Keefe. So this is Mac O'Keefe's pocket in the Maverick Optic 2.0. I'm going to teach you how to string it. It's a really great pocket, and obviously he's a big underhand outside lefty shooter, really smooth with the ball, and so he's got a very shifty, looser channel mid pocket, but the sidewall pattern is really fundamentally sound. You can see for the top string, he's got a regular 9 diamond on the first row, so that's where you can start to get yourself set up. And then for the sidewall pattern, you just need to know how to do simple SIs and 1s, where you can find tutorials for those on our page on YouTube. So I think this is a pocket that a lot of you guys could really like in the Optic 2.0, so let's dive into stringing the sidewall pattern. All right, so let's start on the sidewall pattern. You can see the 9 diamond top string is done on the first sidewall hole. So we're gonna start our sidewall pattern with the second sidewall hole. So we'll go right into that second sidewall hole. And we're just gonna do a double loop with that first diamond and mesh to start us off. So from the face of the mesh to the back, and then right back through that same second sidewall hole, making a loop that you're gonna pull nice and tight to hold the mesh to the sidewall, and then back through the same hole mesh again, and then back through the same sidewall hole again, so that second one. So you're gonna go do basically 2 loops, that second sidewall hole to that first diamond of mesh, and then back through the mesh one more time. You could really only do 1 loop, but 2 makes it nice and tight. So now we're gonna do a couple of SI knots to pull the mesh down a little bit. So the first one, we're gonna skip a sidewall hole. So you go through the back of the mesh first, and then you're gonna go through the outside of the sidewall, and then you can see there's a gap under the string where it went through the mesh. You're gonna go right under that string and make a loop that's gonna pull the mesh down nice and tight. So now you're gonna do another SI with the third hole of mesh, skipping an additional sidewall hole. So down through the top, through the sidewall, and up under the gap between the sidewall and the mesh. And you can see that's gonna pull that mesh down nice and tight. And finally, we're gonna do a third SI, skipping one more sidewall hole. So skip, SI, and pull all the slack out of those knots nice and tight. So now we're gonna do what I'm kind of calling is a false one. We're not gonna go through any mesh, we're just gonna go straight to the sidewall and go down through the outside of the next hole and not go through the mesh ever. It's just gonna be nothing on that loop. And now we're gonna do a series of 1s all in a row with no sidewall skips down the rest of the pattern. And for these, he's gonna go from the top of the mesh down to the back, pull the slack out, and then through the outside of the sidewall and up under that string loop without going back through the mesh. So when you're done with your 1, it'll look something like that. So now you'll move on to the next hole of mesh and the next sidewall, through the back, through the sidewall, and under the string, creating that loop where those 1s can float, making sure the most important step here is getting all the slack out of those strings to make it as tight as humanly possible. So we're gonna do another one. That's gonna make 3 so far. 1 more, 4, right down to the next hole. No skipping any holes here, just going 1s straight down. Next one is gonna make 5. And this final one is gonna make 6. And then for the last hole of mesh, does something a little bit different. We're gonna go down through the top of the next 10 diamond row, and we're going to do that loop on that bottom sidewall hole. So then from the inside to the outside of the very bottom sidewall hole, back around and through the back of that last 10 diamond mesh, and then around and finishing on that same last sidewall hole to give you that loop there on the last diamond. And then you're going to tie your knot off. All right, so you've got the pocket wrapped, the sidewall pattern's done. Next up is bottom string. I've got a really simple loop on that last 10 diamond row that we did those end loops on, and that'll make sure you can keep the pocket legal and nice and tight. For shooting strings, he's got 2 regular shooting strings dropped down on 9 diamond rows. So they're down a little bit in the head, and this is just going to give a little extra snap and grab a little lower in the head for some nice whip on those elevator shots. So let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. Leave your suggestions for other players whose pockets I should replicate. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and check back next Wednesday for another basement tutorial.